This video is a collection of videos from every member of staff here at my school, certainly in the farrier department and some in the vet nursing department as well. And it's just to help you understand how different people study for exams. So the aim is to go around every member of staff, just a minute interview, just with them explaining how they personally study for examination. So have a listen, find if there are any techniques that interest you, that you think might work for you. If you're struggling with a certain area, try some of these different techniques. Like I say, we all study differently. As I'm the one that's got to talk everyone into it, I'm going to go first. So the first video you will see will be me, followed by every other member of staff, hopefully, fingers crossed. Okay, so I'm talking me personally now. When I'm studying for exams, the first thing that I've become aware of over the years is the level that I need to learn things at. I'm the type of person that has to learn things to a really high level. If I don't learn it to a high level, I do struggle to explain it at a more basic level. Which brings me on to the next technique about pretending to teach. I do a lot of standing in a room on my own and pretending to teach. By doing this method, I really do find the areas that I do understand really well and the areas that I don't understand really well. The other thing that I do a lot of is sort of practicing how to answer questions. So I will practice and practice. I will answer a question, turn the paper over, check the book to see if I'm right. If I'm right, then I will close the book again, redo the question again, till I am very happy with where I am. I'll then move on to another subject, go through the subjects. I'll have a list of the subjects that I need to learn, and then every week or so I will go back and choose some of the earlier subjects and check that I know them. If there's been any loss of knowledge, then I will go back and learn that subject again. For me personally, I find that it works really well. On to the next person.
Okay, this is Lynn Kerrigan. She is Assistant Head Further Education for Vet Nursing, and Lynn's going to tell us how she revises.
Okay, so the way I like to revise is I read a lot basically. I'm a very visual learner, so I'll get my notes and I will read them and read them some more. The thing if you're going to revise that way is it's always got to be quality over quantity, so there's no point coming in and trying to do this after a long day at work or being out or whatever because you're tired and you're not going to take that information in. So what I try and do is set myself some time. I might have my tea first, set myself some time and decide I'm going to do 2 hours quality revision, and at the end of that 2 hours I'm going to do something nice, or I'm going to eat something nice, or I'm going to go out. And obviously I'll increase the number of hours I revise the closer it gets to sort of my exams and stuff. Because I am a very visual learner and I like to read, I can't always have my nose in a book, but sometimes I'll make like posters or some sort of annotated picture and I'll stick them up. So basically come revision time, my house is covered. Every room in the house has got some sort of poster, the toilet, doesn't matter where it is, wherever you spend the most of your time, but they're just visual cues for you to be looking at all the time. After I've done a set revision period, what I'll do is then just try and write down or verbalise what it is I've just read, because again, if you're really tired and you're reading things too late, you can read and read and read, but then someone could ask you what you've just read and you've got absolutely no idea at all. I've gone to the days where I would fall asleep with my nose in a book because it just doesn't work. You don't remember it in the morning. So yeah, my advice is read it, but quality over quantity. Make sure the revision that you do is good quality revision. And yeah, that's about it.
Okay, another face that you're all going to recognise. This is Alan Worthington, Senior Farrier Tutor, and Alan's just going to talk about how he personally studies for exams and learns.
Okay, I generally start off with a good block of diploma questions, which are my subjects. I will revise one question an evening because I feel that is quite sufficient if you're going to do it thoroughly. If it's an anatomy-based question, I will start my revision with drawings, as many as possible to cover all aspects. So if, for instance, is blood supply, I would draw out the main arteries of the leg, the main veins of the leg, and then go on to the lower leg and foot. I will then put that to one side, take a break, get the books out, go over the subject, and then redo until I'm quite happy with the depth of my revision and the depth of my remembering the knowledge I need to intake. If it's a farrier-related question for something like laminitis, I will follow the answer format of definition, anatomy, causes, etc. to give a full answer. And then again, once I've done my answer, put it to one side, including any drawings that are necessary, get the books out, have a good revise, and then go back to it again and repeat again until I'm happy with the result.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is a face some of you will recognise. This is John Kerrigan. John Kerrigan is the advanced teaching practitioner for vet nursing and farriery, often seen loitering around farriery, so he wants his 10 penneth worth, so here he goes.
When I'm revising, my memory's a bit like a sieve, so I have to try and remember things as best way I can. The way I do this is that I read over information, read it until I think I've got an understanding of it. I then make myself some cue cards, but summarising the main information. I'll then put those cue cards all around the house so that if I'm stood in the kitchen cooking tea, I'm basically revising whilst I'm doing it by reading the cue cards and summarising it. Once I think I've got a grip of the information and I think I know what I need to know, I then will go back and test myself. I'll make spider diagrams, so the cue cards don't necessarily just have to be bullet points of information. They can be diagrams, they can be spider diagrams, where you're literally summarising lots of key points together. But I use those cue cards and I stick them anywhere I possibly can, and that's what gets me through it.
Okay, this is John Mather. John Mather is Senior Farriery Tutor for HE for the degrees, for those of you who don't know who he is. And John is going to talk you through how he revises and prepares for exams. Over to you, John.
Cheers, bud. One of the things I find, if I've got a lot of information to learn, then if I'm not picking it up just by reading it, which sometimes you don't, it can be if it's a very heavy subject, then what I'll do is I'll actually start writing it down. And then whilst I'm writing it, I'll look for key phrases within that information. So, for instance, when I was an apprentice and I was learning osteology, I remembered the sentence, when I was talking about the distal phalanx, that the distal phalanx is perforated by innumerable small holes located for the insertion of blood vessels and nerve endings. So that one sentence then acted as a trigger for lots of other information. So straight away it helped me with what its composition was. I knew that it didn't have a medullary cavity. It was a lightweight bone because it was perforated by lots of holes. That then led on to your sensitive coriums because of the blood vessels and everything. And so that one sentence, by remembering that one sentence, it just really helped as a trigger for lots of other information about that bone. You know, it's lightweight. That's the help with the biomechanics of the foot flying through the air. You don't want a heavy bone on the end of the limb. All just little things like that. I just found it's really helps. So if you just go through the document, either whether you've written it down or you're reading it, highlight the key phrases and then try and remember them key phrases, and they'll act as just a trigger mechanism to more information. And I find that's a really good way of learning. Hope it helps.
Thanks, John. Okay, this is Claire Blaw. She is Assistant Head of HE, Vet Nursing and Farriery. So Claire's going to tell us how she personally studies and revises for exams.
Hi everybody. I'm a very organised person, so before I undertake exams I have to write down a list of the topics, break it down into smaller topics, figure out which ones I know the most about, not so much about, and completely need to revise. See, I have to split it down like that. Don't spend time on the things I know most about because that would be a waste of time. So I have a little timetable, and my technique is I'm a writer. I write things down, I write notes out, I rewrite them, I refine them each time. I pick out keywords, I focus on the keywords, and then eventually I get down to just a bullet point list about a topic. And by that time, I've written the information out so many times that I know it, I can talk about it, I can answer questions about it. So yeah, that's my technique. Get organised in the first place, focus on learning outcomes, and then just write. I must waste a load of paper. But...
Brilliant, thank you. Okay, so I'm sure you all know this is Olwyn. Olwyn is now going to talk about what works for her when she's preparing for examinations. Over to you.
Okay, so when I was preparing for examinations, and if I'm trying to learn anything new now, I tend to keep it to one subject per evening that I was learning, and make sure that I fully understood it before I moved on to the next one. I found that writing it down rather than just reading it over and over again helped me to get it to go into my brain a little bit better. So I write it all down, maybe 2 or 3 times until I'd actually absorbed the information. And then I found that by making small cards, so just small revision cards with keywords on, the most important parts of the information I needed, and I would used to take them out in the van with me just to sort of refresh my brain, just to go over it in my head to try and assess my learning basically and make sure that I was learning it. I also found that doing diagrams really helped me to get my information in that I needed to retain.
Okay, so I'm sure you'll recognise his face. This is Steve Green, and Steve's going to tell us how he personally studies for exams.
Okay, so the first thing I do is I make a timetable of the whole week and looking at my available time slots to revise, but I'll colour code it in relation to the subjects that I'm going to also study. So for example, osteology might be in red, so I'll have an hour's block of red study, say Monday afternoon. But I have to stick to it absolutely religiously. If I default on it at all, the next day I have to go and do an hour's red study, which is osteology, and then an extra hour, whatever it's going to be on that day. So if you don't stick to it, you've got almost like a punishment system where you have to go back and redo what you've already missed. So by the end of the week, if you've defaulted on the whole week of study, you've got to spend your weekend doing it, which isn't a particularly nice experience. But for me personally, it works. You know, I have to do it on colour coding simply because my brain just doesn't pick up on it otherwise. But I have to be systematic at my approach. I have to do it in this rigid way. Otherwise, I just never get round to doing it.
Okay, so a face you'll all recognise. This is Linda Quinn, Farrier Manager, or Queen Bee, keeps everything running smoothly. So Linda is going to talk to you about how she prepares for exams. Over to you.
The way I prepare for exams is I'm a list maker. I like to make a list of all the topics, all the subjects, and then break them down into individual small pieces. I also do a lot of practice for exams. When I was doing my horse exams, I was fortunate to have a horse to practice on, so I used to bandage it, I used to tack it up, untack it, identify points of the horse, identify the bones and the colours and markings. And then when I identified the bones, I then related that to any injuries or conditions that part of the horse's anatomy affected it or could be damaged, and how you would treat it, both veterinary, farriery, etc. So that was how I used to revise with regards to the actual animal. When it came to theory, as I said, I made a load of lists. I used to write things down, I used to draw pictures, I used to do mind maps. But I think the most important one I used to think about was, when it came to anatomy, was to relate it to my own body, as it were, and using key words that would remind me as to where the horse's vertebrae were, how many there were, and any lumps and bumps, etc., with regards to those parts of the horse's body, and related it to my own anatomy, and that helped me to relate it back to the horse.
So this is Simone Bailey. She is the Inclusive Learning Advisor for Farriery here at Myesco, for those of you who don't know her, and she's going to talk to you about how she revises and learns prior to exams.
My best way to revise, that I found over the years, I've done lots of studying for various things, is I need to take away all distractions. I need to allocate myself a bit of time to do it, and put my phone out of sight, otherwise I keep checking it or looking at it. Have no distractions. I can't listen to music and things, some people can. I just like it nice and quiet. I like to break the work down into small pieces, so I like to make spidergrams. I read through the work I need, and then I break it down into smaller chunks and do it in different colours, so that it's a more of a visual learner, I think. I then break it down to those little chunks into pictures that I can keep rereading through each time. The other thing I like doing is to make little almost like little poems or stories up about different things. If I'm learning lots of different joints, I'll make up a story that it'll include, like for example, a hinge joint. I will sort of say I went through the door. That will prompt me to remember that there's a hinge on a door, and I break the whole thing down into little stories so that I can memorise them in sequence. I find everyone finds learning different ways. I work with lots of students and everyone has different techniques for learning, but I find those are the best for me.
Okay, another face you'll all recognise. This is Dave Beardmore, Farrier Tutor lecturer here at Myosco, and Dave is going to tell us how Dave studies for exams. Over to you, Dave.
Right, I'm a busy person whilst out shooting. I was a busy person when I was an apprentice, so time was limited. Mine was at night time when I had to do a revision. I find best things to do as much as you can, as often as you can. The more you do it, the more you learn. But it means reading, writing, whatever form is better for you. I found reading it, writing it down, reading it, writing it down. If you have a diagram, a short diagram, repetition, repetition, repetition. It's the same as revising for an exam as you're doing practicing for shoemaking or shoeing a horse. The more you do it, the better you're going to get at it, and the more natural it becomes to you. And that is my personal way of doing it. Thank you.
Okay, another face that you'll all recognise. This is Craig Darcy, Farrier Placement Officer and part-time lecturer when he's here at college. And Craig is going to tell us how he studies for exams. Over to you, Craig.
Hi. Studying has also proved a little bit difficult for me. I'm not the most organised person in the world, as some people will know. So I've always tried to make lists and get things sorted and make sure that I try and cover the subject that I'm trying to revise. In the end, although I try and give myself lots of time, I also usually end up doing these at night when it's nice and quiet, when I can think, when I've got everything else done in the day, and I tend to be quite late when I'm revising, and that's just something that I find works for me. As far as actually doing the revision, I tend to write information down, and I'll keep writing it down and keep repeating it. I usually have an A4 block pad of paper, and I just keep repeating that until I feel I've got the right answer and I've revised the subject.
Okay, this is a face you'll all recognise. This is Andy Shuttleworth. Andy is a tutor, lecturer in the Farrier department, and Andy's going to tell us how he revises for exams.
I'm Andy, I wouldn't class myself any means academic. I've always struggled. The only way I can absorb it, if I read it and write it down as I'm reading it, or easier if I get somebody else to read it, and I take my notes from that and then rewrite it. I work fortunate enough to be able to read it and remember it. Thank you.
Revising, I hate revising. Could never do it, never been shown how to do it properly or anything. It was just the bane of my life. I'd do anything to get out of it. Any distraction going, I'd even go and pick dog turds up off the lawn instead of revising. But it's something you've got to do. When I came to do a degree here in my AW, I had no choice, but it was always lastminute.com. But sitting and reading stuff just didn't work for me. I could read one line, by the time I got to the next line, it had gone, just couldn't remember it. Even making notes, I get distracted and that. I really found the best way of revising was talking through with other lads, you know, different ideas, and that seemed to stick in. If I did have to revise by myself, I used to copy stuff out and miss out sort of key words, so that then I'd have to read through it or write through it and add in the missing words, and that seemed to help a bit, but really it was just like pulling your teeth out, and I hated it.